Okay.
We are centered. We are calm.
Hello and welcome to ULTI.TV. We're bringing you our predictions for 2025. You would have caught our last show we did in the women's division. I've got the same wonderful panel, and we're going to break down the open division. I'm Stefan Rapazzo, alongside or potentially surrounded by Amelia Durbin, Benji Reese, and Hannah Pendlebury. Quick hellos to all of you. Derbs, you keeping well?
Keeping well, living the dream,
Living
enjoying winter.
the dream, enjoying winter. Benji, how you keeping up there?
All the cats seem to have disappeared, so less good.
Get those cats back around, Benji. Hannah, how are you?
No, let them do as they please.
Okay, let the cats do as they please. Hannah, how are you?
I'm well, thank you, Steph. I'm missing the frizz. Indoors just doesn't quite scratch the same itch, but I am pleased to have not had to respond to any sleazy jet boarding calls for the past 3 months. That's been nice, not having to do budget air travel.
Yes, I hear you, but all the same, I'm excited to get back onto that horse for some reason. We all know why. Once you get going, you stay going. We love what we do. We're gonna break down the open division in the same way we broke down the women's division. Again, make sure you go check that one out. At the top of the division last year, you guys all saw it. Mooncatchers won their very first European title in dominant fashion. They beat up Clapham pretty good in the final there, and were unscathed along the way. Kind of a home Euros down the road in Oostende, not far from their home in Brussels. Chak, I will say, surprised a bunch. I even said in my prediction show for that one that I see them making quarters and possibly semis, and it was kind of, well, really? But Chak did turn some heads. BFD La Fotta was the other semifinalist, and I think they were the more likely in people's minds to be there. Chak got them 2 in the bronze medal game. That was last year. Now we're this year, 2025. Now let's go to Derbs first. I've got a feeling when we talk about nepotism and connections, I got a feeling I know where Derbs might go here. I got a feeling, but I'll let it come from the horse's mouth. Derbs, how do you see 2025 shaking out in the open division?
So I have a 3-part note section, which is a good topic for conversation. So
As
point
many
number
as 3.
1, as many as 3, I know, I'm generous. Point number 1 is that I know the Clapham lot, and obviously GB didn't qualify for World Games, so this year for us Brits there isn't anything else other than Euros and Worlds qualifications. For the Clapham boys, qualifying for Worlds is a walk in the park. They just need to come top 4 at Nationals, which based off their current track record, something tells me they might do that. And at Euros, obviously qualifying is quite a gentle task for them. It's just that final and maybe sometimes a semi-game. But this year, their sole focus is their Worlds campaign and Euros, whereas Mooncatchers, I'm going to say, maybe don't feel as focused. We've obviously had the news come out that 2 or 3 of their best players, their top players, are playing in the UFA for the Toronto Rush, I believe it is, the kind of Rush rebrand. And so my kind of question is, where does that leave them? Have they won Euros and now they're like, oh, we're done, we're going off to do other things, and that kind of group of people disband? Or do they continue trying to push? Based on what the performance of both of them at the moment, it looks like Moon are taking it a little bit less seriously and Clapham are taking it more seriously. That's my 10 pence. My final statement is, which is a bit mean, the open division is too predictable and it's a bit boring.
Yeah.
I think what by mean you mean accurate.
Thank you.
For those who are not so up to date with Pro Ultimate, who were those players who were playing are playing up in Canada? You said with the Rush.
I believe it's Arvid's Clarklands. Blasman is going, and there is a third person, but that name has escaped me.
Tom's Abelfinch.
That one.
So they're 2 Latvians and 1 of their Dutch players. Hannah, you've got your hand up.
Didn't I say? I think I saw something on social media about Sofiane Bontemps and Chicago.
So there are 5 Mooncatcher players. Dan and Sofiane Bontemps will be playing Chicago Union. Assumed both to be playing the club season with Machine as well.
Delighted for Sofiane Bontemps because I think he sometimes gets overlooked because it's such a star-studded roster, but I rate him so highly. I think he's great, and for Blasman, Abeltinge and Karklinge, it sort of felt like a matter of time that they make the crossover to the States. I think, like it's been waiting. Whether they spin that into the club season as well, whether there's split loyalties there, whether Paul Arters makes the trip back as well. So there's a lot of potentials, a lot of things up in the
air. You want to keep cruising, Derbs or
no,
Benji?
That was my mic drop for you.
Any more from Benj?
I think the thing we learned at last EUCF was that Chak are back. I do not see that disappearing. On the subject of players who have been out in North America, if Elliot Bonnet is not planning on making the trip back, or he's planning on maybe being a bit more closer to home more often, then Truck Stop Slots is very much Chak's game. He will be huge for them. I expect Wall City to be there or thereabouts. Actually, I think beyond maybe the top 2, I think that sort of that 3 to 6, 7 is actually pretty tightly packed with Chak, Fotta, potentially Gentle based on hopefully Aaron van der Wegen gets back to full fitness, whatever the Ukrainians are doing. Wall would be good as well. I think GRUT might kick on a little bit as well. So I think actually, if you look past the very top tier, I think that sort of set below it is really tightly grouped, and I think could be a little bit of a bloodbath. The one thing I can guarantee you, though, is that Fotta will have an absolute banger of a semi with someone, and then whoever they beat will get blown out in the final the next day. They are the gatekeepers at the moment of the Open Division at EUCF, and look, it's not bad, but you can be sure that actually they would much rather take a boring semi-final and a boring final as long as they came out on the right side of it.
The losers stick to be hit by is what I was calling them last year.
But my word, it's great entertainment, isn't it? It's such good entertainment.
I mean, those last 2 semis are potentially game of the year in the last 2 years.
I haven't watched the semis from Euros.
Last 3 years, maybe.
Yes. The Clapham one before the Ranelagh. Yes, you're absolutely right. Okay. So I agree with you on a whole lot of that. I'll have tidbits to add about Chak. I had a conversation with Mr. Bonnet this morning. But let's move it right along. Hanny.
I mean, to talk about those flipping semi-finals, the one in Wrocław last time, I forget exactly who was commentating it. Was it you and Lorcan, Steph?
It was.
Yeah, honestly, I've never seen Lorcan in quite that emotional state after commentating a Frisbee game. I've seen him in that emotional state in other contexts, but not after commentating. That was quite the game for sure, and it's really interesting in terms of conceptually, like the hype of that last game of the day before finals day, and obviously then just kind of a bit of a went out with the whimper and not less of a bang that year especially, but hey ho, I think I like the fact that you were trying to mic drop us, Derbs, but I think everyone wholeheartedly agrees with you. It is the unfortunate premise of the games can be enjoyable to watch, but overall as a division, Open is becoming a bit predictable, becoming a bit dull due to just the dominance of those top echelon teams. I agree, but I think
Sorry, can finish your point.
No, you go.
I was going to say the irony of the Open Division actually being more of a closed shop than anything else. I think it's pretty good.
Just the way it happens. I think it'll be interesting to see the way the pendulum swings in future seasons. I don't think that's going to be in the imminent future. I certainly think that it's a really fair point to bring into the conversations the various things that are going to distract and detract from Moon. You know, the being physically halfway around the world to go and play for a form of disc sport. What, you know, we can call the UFA that, but it's a very kind of, you know, different environment, slightly altered play styles. You know, touch wood, none of them come back with any kind of knocks and bruises that they can't recover from quickly, just because of the different format and the different allowance of contact that happens in that league. In terms of other things, we have seen a bit of reconsolidation of players to their home squads. GRUT came out with their open roster announcement. Blasman's gone back. They have picked up some tasty talent from Alba as well. Leon Williams, I believe, is going to be with them this year. So it'll be interesting to see if that helps GRUT kind of jump up from their bottom of the top sets coming into next season. Indeed, both the Van der Vega brothers are really big parts of Hent's team, Gentle, as well, of course, as there even more big names that we've seen. I kind of would love to see Gentle go actually a little bit further this season and really kind of put their stamp in the book a bit more. Certainly last year for Belgian Open fans was a little bit of a heartbreaker. Perhaps some interesting choices that happened in their game against Japan, but we'll talk a little bit less about that because this is a club. And yeah, love seeing Czech coming back with a vengeance. Again, if they can keep their key personnel, but it is a pretty fully fleshed squad. We have seen the French Open team doing a lot of great things in recent years with some slightly interesting strategies that people have been talking about. But yeah, and I don't know about La Fotta. You know, like they have a lot of good midsection talent, but I'm yet to be convinced as to who, and I'll throw this to the rest of the group, who are La Fotta's real rising stars that are going to start to shine this season, do we reckon?
It is a interesting call, Hannah. I like it because I was saying a year ago that the best players on La Fotta were the three young studs. Sebastian Rossi, not playing next year. David Barsazi, they cut him, and he is looking for a team that will not be La Fotta last year. So he's got a little bit of angst against them for not taking him on that premise. And Lorenzo Pavan, who took last year off, ended up playing in mixed at the very end of the season. I think he played the last month or so.
What's happening with Rossi this year?
Rossi's taking a season off.
Fair enough.
Yeah, he's unless something changes in the coming months. When I spoke to him at the end of WBUC, he said he needs a break. He still loves Frisbee. He still loves it, but he needs a season off, and life and jobs and stuff got to take some priority. So, you know, their three best players that I proclaimed a year ago are no longer available to them. Otherwise, like, do we see, like, you always talk about this army of Italians coming through Bologna, the school system, Davide set it up. There are heaps of them, but there are a couple more teams in Bologna too. There's One Tribe doing really well, Disco Bolo that does well on the Italian scene. And I think a lot of their household names are aging a little bit. I mean, certainly...
They had this new guy on their O-line last year. I'd not seen him before. Giovanni Santucci?
Like,
I don't know. Like,
he actually played really well on O, I thought. He was
their leading stat getter at EUCF.
Yeah,
he was.
He's not exactly an up and coming young player.
No.
Sorry.
Can I just say though, as soon as you said stuff about the kind of the aging talent, I just was reminded of when Chopo said something along the lines of the oldest chicken makes the finest broth.
Jesus, the adages coming out of them. Nasser will be coaching La Fotta. That is a big change. I believe Kieran Hudson will remain as the assistant coach for NAS. Listen, Gasperini, Tognetti, Santucci, Laffi, like these players are awesome. I talk about, like, maybe it's the Coppi, it's the Mastroianni, it's a bunch that are still very good, but are they still making this roster? And I think when you cut the legs out of those other three, they're gonna make this team still, and I think that is going to affect their depth negatively. I have a feeling. I mean, if I was coaching La Fotta, I would be going back to what they've done in the past, and they still do bring along some externals. Crash going back to Czech next year, so he will no longer be with them. And I don't know if he fit in as well as he did in his first year with them. He fit in really well. Last year, I didn't see him fitting in as well. Jan Novak, but they used to have a bit more bolstering of external players. I could see them going back to doing some shopping and trying to get some bigger household names to try and find their way back in, because that seems like the way to do it. If you're not Clapham, and here's another now Hannah, you posed a question. When was the last time Clapham didn't win the EUCF 2 years in a row? Like, they got knocked off by Ranelagh, won the next season. Got knocked off by got knocked off by La Fotta, won the next season. Got knocked off by Ranelagh, won the next season. Got knocked off by Moon now. If they lose again, it would be the first time in as long as I've been covering.
As far as
European
I'm aware,
Ultimate.
I think Flying Angels were the last repeat champions back at the start of the 2010s.
Wow.
And after that, I think it's been pretty much all Clapham with, the odd one or two thrown in.
Yeah, so I mean, things line up. You talk about the Moon players all over the shop. Hannah, you mentioned Tom Blasman. I think he is staying on Moon. He's on the practice roster, but the bigger one to me is Ben Ort. Now, I think Ben Ort is one of the best pedigreed players in the world, potentially in Europe. He's won championships in mixed. He's won championships in the U.S. He's won medals on the world stage. He goes over, plays a high contribution role for Moon, but is not, the offensive player of the year. Like, he's working with some greats. He can do it as a contributor. He can do it as the number one guy. He can do it as anything. And you said, one of you, I think Benji, said you see GRUT coming up and getting more done. I really do see GRUT firing back into contention with Ben Ort, the heartbeat of GRUT. He was the one who started GRUT. He is going back home, bringing back all this pedigree that he had taken over these years, the last couple years anyways, out in DC, and then playing for Brussels, and bringing it back to a club that went quite well last year. I think GRUT will have a good chance to trim the fat. I like their roster. I looked at their new roster compared to their stat getters last year, and it seems like, some of the people who had less stats aren't coming along for the ride, to put it bluntly. So I do see GRUT as one of those teams that will rise. Czech. Now, I think they have got the potential. You add Elliot Bonnet to that roster, you add Quentin Roger, Crash back to that roster, that team could go toe-to-toe with Clapham or Moon. I don't think they're going to get that chance. I think because a lot of these players are going to prioritize World Games. I think I spoke about it when we talked about the women's division. There are some clubs that would say, you have to be here and you have to meet all these requirements and you have to be at this tournament and this training camps. And it seems like Czech might well be one of those teams and could, turn away the services of, the best players in the country, some of the best players on the continent. And I think that would be a bloody shame. So if the Czech brass are watching this, pull your head out of your brass is what I want to say, and sign up the talent, let them play for their country and show up and play for the club at the big moment is what I say. That's what the fans want to see, but that's what will give them their best chance at knocking off the big dogs in this division. Have we given our medals predictions, or is it time now?
It might be the time.
I think it's time, guys and girls. Let's start. Let's just roll our circle around. Derbsy, or Drubsy, or Mealsy.
Call me what you want.
Derbs.
I think that Clapham will win,
Oh, shock.
and if they don't, I'm going to be disappointed in them.
You won't be the only one. Trust me.
And I think I don't want to put Mooncatchers second. I don't want to, so I'm not going to. I don't.
But will
want
you?
To. No, I don't think that they will. I think people are quite like what's the phrase? Like bees round honey, which is a lot of people will remember what Mooncatchers did really, really well, and they will refuse to look at anything that Mooncatchers have done that's not been good. And I think that Mooncatchers haven't had like an unblemishable history where they've been super dominant for years. Like they're still fairly new, and they've had some really catastrophic slip ups on the way. And so I don't think that we can suddenly put them in as like they're super dominant and they're going to crush it. Like I don't think that's a guarantee. They're not anywhere near like the same level of dominance that Clapham have, in my opinion. And so I'm going to put them third, and second, I'm going to put. I'm just looking at the names. Fotta. Let's put Fotta there. They'll get through a semi. Let them have it.
Trubsy.
So Clapham, Fotta, Mooncatchers.
Okay, there it is. Clapham, Fotta, a good old El Clasico, really, is, I think Liam Grant called it that in the semi last year, which was a cracker of a semi, and you see that progressing to the final.
I do.
Benji, and sorry, who'd you take for your bronze? Then Moon? Okay, then Moon. Okay, Benj.
It's interesting because you don't tend to want, like, the Mooncatchers won, they won. Yes, it's not been a sustained period of dominance, maybe over the course of a number of seasons, but they were the far and away the class of the division last year, and frankly, it kind of wasn't close. The fact that, some of their players will have split priorities does, I must admit, cause me a little bit of consternation.
Nice word.
Thank you. So, really boringly, maybe I do take Clapham. With Moon, I still think Mooncatchers have enough to finish in second. Third place, you know what? I still think Gimme Chak, to be honest. Yes, their top end will be focusing on World Games, but actually, I think that it's easy to sleep on just how much talent there is generally on that roster.
Like to hear it. Hanny.
I am always, as you guys know, a fan of being slightly contrarian. I'm just looking, though, at the matchups. I know there was some interesting thoughts on how the EUCS rankings then related to the way that the pools were seeded and how things were drawn up.
Hoagie loved that.
Or love might be an interesting word to use. And it's not an unusual thing for us to see in the Open Division when we actually get to EUCF stage anyway, for quite a few years now, even before the kind of new world we have with the point system, of avoiding certain teams in the bracket because it is kind of that closed set right at the top of things and whatnot. I think it's an interesting one. So after Moon's win of the ECF title, it was kind of one of those things where quite a few of the players were like, well, no, this one's particularly special. Like you had players who had won golds in the mixed division, for example, who were like, no, this one means a little bit more because we felt like we had to really drive for it. And as Benji said, they were the class of the division. It's a case of, do I realistically believe that the commitments overseas will completely derail them or not? I'm going to be the person that says, no, I don't think it will. And I think they have a lot of confidence. They are going to have a little bit of that like big baddie effect. I know there are lots of teams amongst the Open Division that now don't like playing Mooncatchers in the same way it used to be the team that had that title was Clapham. And just that kind of psychological thing of people didn't like playing them. we won't go into the kind of the gossiping around why that might be. But I'm going to be cheeky. I'm going to say Mooncatchers for a double for funsies. I think they probably still have the talent to do it and the drive to do it. They still have the same consistency of coaching. Pierre Alain, of course, I do believe will be coming back this year. I didn't hear any rumours that he was stepping back. And congratulations to him for the recent new safe arrival into his family. But and then I'm going to go for Moon, La Fotta, Clapham. It's going to be my call for funsies.
La Fotta
Having thrown shade.
Bounce and
Well,
Clapham.
also,
not only do they not repeat, they don't even make the final. Woo!
That would be a very unpleasant car journey home for me.
I'm so disturbed. I mean, in a sense, I hope that doesn't happen for you specifically, but I think it would be really. I mean, it's just that really interesting battle between Clapham and La Fotta. I mean, it depends on what really the mood is on the day. I think that final that they lost quite handily really was the definition of madness, trying the same thing, expecting a different result. I know there's been certainly big leadership changes since that final, and the personnel changes as well. But yeah, let's throw some spice in. Why the F not?
Love a little bit of spice. Now, Moon are missing Ben. They've got 5 players overseas that are still playing. They're obviously very committed to Ultimate, playing championship level, trying to play as much Ultimate as they can. I think that's good. I think I am surprised that even I had forgotten to mention it in my initial thoughts, and none of us have talked about the best player in Europe 2 years ago, in many people's mind, is coming back. And Reph Jonkers has been gone for a year and a half. And he will be back on that roster. So, they lose Ben. They get Reph. Now, my question is, when Reph left, he was numero uno. It was his team. He was the captain. He drove the boat. What he said went. Well, there's a new sheriff in town. Dan Desmarais has very clearly taken those reins. Are we going to see a chemistry clash there? That is my only question. Otherwise, it's there.
I have a thought. So I have a thought on this. We didn't see them clash when they played on Belgium Open together. So before Reph got injured, obviously they had plenty of reps, I believe, on that same roster.
At EUC.
No, so Reph was obviously injured for EUC, but like the preparation stuff we saw previously, I believe. I'm definitely there's a little little voice in the back of my brain that says they have definitely played on that roster together for the national team and not had any challenges. I'll go double check my facts.
I think they've definitely played together and they've succeeded together, but it's always been big brother, little brother, Reph to Dan.
Dan's had a real personality change in the last 8 months, I'd say.
Dan he's just become the man, and I think deservedly so. He is the best player. I think that was one of the easiest awards to give out when we're going to get to that section. He is the M and F and man. He's awesome. I think that's very easy to say.
Well, when he doesn't get ejected from games for being a bit too boshy.
Yeah, is he going to bring a red card home from the USA?
I think, well, the interesting thing, though, is that it's not like Reph's been disconnected from Mooncatchers. It's not like he's been, I'm going to go and put my head in the sand, rehab myself, and come back to playing form. He has been on the sidelines of every single moment they've had. He has been engaged in stuff and kind of still really active as a presence in that kind of Mooncatchers community. So, I mean, it's a very interesting point you raise. Will that Desmarais become a sort of, an enfant terrible, as it were? But I don't know, man. Like, I think Reph has earned the respect over, like, the, having been that person before. I'm not sure that Dan has necessarily become that big-headed, but I guess we'll find out.
I'm not necessarily saying Dan's big-headed. I'm just saying leadership struggle. Is there will they be able to do this together?
The power dynamic.
Yeah. Or is there hey, no, this is my team. No, this is my team.
So I'm not I'm explicitly not writing off Reph Jonkers. Do not go putting a picture of me on a dartboard in your garage, right? I fully hope that he comes back fully firing, better than ever, right? Because you always want that when people get injured. But, it's a serious knee injury. And I think sometimes we take for granted like how much that takes out of you, how much work you have to do to get back to the position you were. And Reph could be, 2/3 of the player he was and still be a superb player who'd walk onto any team in Europe. But it's tough to get back to the level he was at because it was so high.
Yeah.
So I really hope he does. But
26, 7, perhaps.
Yeah, I hope he is that good again. But it's not a given.
It takes a year, I think. For
Yeah, I
people to
mean,
get
that's
back
the
to where
thing.
they need
He's
to
taken
be.
a year and a half. The one thing I will say is Reph could have played last year.
Yeah.
He's training. He is taking his rehabilitation as serious as anyone I've ever seen. He probably could have gone to Australia, but he would have been risking, further injury. He's very smart about his injury,
which is unusual for a Frisbee player.
Yes, it is. I mean, that urge and
Take note,
eagerness to
everyone
just
else.
get back out there, do it the way Reph's doing. Now, all this speculative chat, I still see Mooncatchers winning. I think they're going to be awesome. I think they're going to beat Clapham. It is boring prediction, but those two are the class of the Open Division. I think it'll be closer this year. I think Clapham will come with a head full of steam and a better game plan and throw the kitchen sink at them. But I think Moon's roster is deeper and better, and they will get the job done. I am going to maybe put my curveball in for the bronze and say GRUT will take the bronze medal and be able to climb that ladder.
That's a huge climb.
It's a big climb. They were 8th last year, but again, even Johan van der Wouden, he didn't play last year with a broken hand. He'll be back. You get Ben Ort back. You trim some of the fat after your first year playing Open. I think they've got nowhere to go but up. I've picked Wall City for these surprise spots
I was
a few
expecting
years
you
in
to
a
say
row,
that.
and they've let me down. So Wall, you guys can wall over.
What do they say?
there.
Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, you can't fool a man twice. Is that the quote?
Something like that.
You nailed it, Benji.
So a question, and actually, Dad, you might know the answer to this. Who's coaching CU this season?
This is also information. I do hear that they have a coach.
I don't think they have a coach officially sorted out yet, but I know they're in talks with someone from Canada.
I
don't know.
I had heard that.
I don't know how much I'm allowed to say. So I'm just
Well, if Benji has heard rumours, what's Benji's rumour?
I can't remember, but I had heard rumours.
I heard that they're in chats with somebody from Great Britain.
I haven't heard that.
I have sworn to bite my tongue.
Okay, well that's fine. We'll leave it in a cloud of mystery.
I'll tell you what.
Oh.
We'll cut this here, and then we'll come back, and you can tell us, and we just trust that Noah leaves it out.
I'll tell you at the end of the show when I turn the record button on.
All right, but the point I made in terms of asking the question of, who might be coaching Clapham in the next cycle, presumably conjoining 2 years to then pop them in Worlds as well. It's kind of links to what Steph just said around the concept of a new game plan and new kind of thing. I think that's been one of the things that has maybe not always been there. It's really interesting because obviously one of the things that the European European scene gets slightly, should we say, poo-pooed by our cousins overseas in North America is the lack of non-playing coaches, and it's been really interesting to see different CU cycles, and some they've had proper formal coaches. Sometimes that's been not so great, and that's been it hasn't really worked out because it's not been the right personnel, but not been the right fit. But then obviously, like, there's a massive echelon of like this little leadership scheme. They seem to kind of, quite well nominate people and empower folks to lead from the front. So that for me, I think will be really interesting to see as a question mark, like a potential game changer for them this year will be to see who they connect with. And if it's one of our Commonwealth pals from Canada, that might be quite interesting. I'm going to have to, that will have to be something for us all to chew on, Derbs, as to who that might be. What famous open division coaches do we know what come from Canada, and ones that maybe spent perhaps time in the UK recently? Who knows?
I also couldn't tell you if you told me, because I can't remember their name.
Okay.
So
wow.
I'm in a cloud of mystery myself.
Everybody in
I feel like this is a conversation we probably had in Lanzarote after a fair few mojitos.
Yeah, blame Connor. Connor told you.
Yes.
I blame the mojitos. The mojitos told me.
Blame the Latvian juice.
I think it's the Latvian juice.
The Latvian juice. Jesus,
yes, Latvian juice.
It was fine. It's just blackcurrant tasting liqueur. I don't like it because I don't like blackcurrant.
I liked it quite a lot. I drank a lot of it.
It's not offensive.
Stuff.
It's not like Sambuca or anything.
All right, back on track here, Latvian juicers. Let's talk about the player awards in the open division.
Are we gonna do the risers and fallers again?
Sorry. Yes, Benji.
Steph was the only person that did risers and fallers.
Didn't even. Did I?
Yeah, you did.
You did a riser, but not
I said
a faller.
GRUT would be my riser. I might as well then just keep rocking and rolling here since I've got that one out of the way and say the biggest faller will be one tribe and they will fall out of qualification. And I gave them shit and they came at me. They were in the same hotel as us in Ostenda and immediately walking in, they're like, "Oh, Rapazzo, you don't think we do good?" And I was like, "I don't think you can win a game in your pool." And they didn't win a game in their pool, but they did all right. They worked their way back up to ninth. They won Ninals. They did well. I don't know if they're going to be able to retain people. La Fotta is going to be chomping to steal away that talent at the top end of that. And I will say that one tribe will be the biggest fall in the open division. Derbs.
I think my biggest riser will be Ranelagh, because I like them and I think that they're building something good in Ireland. They clearly want to do well and they've got a good leadership core. I've heard some loose whispers that some people might be going back to Ranelagh.
Is Ferdia going back? Is that the loose whisper?
There's other ones as well.
Okay.
But again, I don't know how much I'm allowed to say.
Just say it, no. Even though I'm not.
I mean, I can definitely put 2 and 2 together and get 5.
Yeah, so that's just some whispers. Don't know if they're true. I think the biggest faller is going to be... that's hard.
Like
Bad Skid, because who's on Bad Skid?
That's a fair. I mean, there's a few notable names.
Only some of the best open talent the Germany's ever produced.
Boyton Mueller. There's a couple names out there on Bad Skid.
You've got Boyton Mueller.
All true.
Mueller.
But Holger's retiring, right? Did I hear that right? Holger Boyton Mueller is now.
Muellers.
But Sam is also.
It is fair. They are an aging squad. Let's see if they can summon the youth and make it work again. But a fair enough call. I think Bad Skid's best days are firmly behind them. So fair enough call there, Derbs. Let's move it up to Benj.
I'm giving you shit for that, but I could also see Bad Skid dropping a little bit. Like Holger, there was talk about him. Oh yeah, he's past his best. He still had 12 assists and 11 goals at EUCS, so he looked all right. He definitely could keep carrying on, but, we know that he's been through injury troubles, right, and there's only so much. Nico Müller, is he going for Germany World Games? Same with Seth Doscher. Does that take him out of it? So I think there's certainly potential for Bad Skid to drop because it might not be a priority. In terms of a riser, they played the algorithm well last year. And then it kind of unraveled a bit at UCF. But actually, if you look at 3SB's games, they lost a lot of games really close. And this is now going to be a team that's had another season and that's got, a season for those players under their belt. I imagine they'll probably go out of region a little bit more to play different opposition during the course of the season. So when you get that step up coming into EUCF, all of a sudden it's not quite so jarring, and it might not be an enormous rise, but I see them finishing certainly higher than 15th. I think one of the things is that I think that top 8 is pretty set in, so I don't necessarily see anyone breaking into that.
Fair. I think you said that off the top. That's the bloodbath zone is the 3 to 7, 3 to 8. So it kind of holds well with what you said earlier, that your biggest dropper is going to come from beneath.
Steph, can you hear me?
Steph,
Shit.
no.
All right, Steph's gone. I'm in charge.
Let's slag him off. Milwaukee.
You're back.
Wow. I guess I had a internet drop off. Give the X's. Okay. I think, Ben, did you finish your point there? My internet just dropped out.
Yes, I think beyond the top 8, who could break into that potentially? Like Derb said, someone like a Ranelagh. We've seen Costa Rica finish top 8 in the past, right? If anyone gets hot at EUCF, then you can break in, but you have to be a very good team to do that, because that top 8 is very, very tough, IMO.
The bloodbath zone, as you said earlier. I don't know if I was cut off before I reiterated, but that 3 to 7 is what you said earlier. 3 to 8, that is tough competition, and they could reshuffle in many different ways. Hanny?
So until the revelations from Derbs about Ranelagh maybe trying to reform and by hook or crook get some folks back onto their roster, I was going to say I liked the look potentially of a riser for XVI. I think they've been building quite consistently over a couple of seasons, and they had some very good results at UCF, played a couple of teams quite tight. I mean, I think they were 15-11 versus Mooncatchers in their pool stages. Like, that's no bad effort.
No, they played Mooncatchers closer than anyone else at UCF.
And certainly, I think it was a couple of sudden death finishes as well that also sort of saw them in that 9-0 bracket. They didn't manage to kind of topple 3. I mean, looking at the bracket for the bottom set, that was indeed a universe finish against 3SB as well. So I'm going to stick with my guns and call them as a potential riser, with again the cloud of uncertainty as if Ranelagh might perhaps, because obviously they have been known as the second sons of Dublin for a good while now. So that being said, my biggest faller, I'm gonna pick on Wall City. I'm gonna say they're gonna fall out of the top 8 and continue after their season of letting Steph the heck down. They're gonna go down. That's what this is literally me just throwing a pin. I think, as we've already said,
if they do lose Perdia, if there is potential for the Germany World Games hangovers, if they do continue to let me down, these things can happen, Hannah. These things can happen. It's worthy of noting. I think XVI had they lost on Universe Point. I was watching that game on the sideline to GRUT for the game to go up or go down, top 8, top 9. GRUT ended up being the bottom of the top 8, and XVI won 9-0s. It only cost them a place, but they were that close.
XVI came 12th.
12th. Cost them a few places, sorry. But that was the game to go, and that was a big difference maker. Sorry for my misquoting the placing there.
Get your head out of your brass.
I already
That's
did.
That's all right. We all mess up. I got my Blastmans confused earlier. So.
Yeah. Blastmans, Orts. It happens. We've gone around. I forgot that I already started with my risers and fallers, so we are now on to Players of the Year. We spoke about Don Demarais, and the 2 in a row he's now had has been sensational for Moon and among other players. I forget who the runner-up was for Player of the Year. Derbs, do you remember?
It's Connor.
Connor McHale, runner-up.
Just this guy.
Two times in a row as well. Do we see these changing. We're starting with you, Derbs.
Feel like I can't comment.
Okay, well, also, whilst you pause, for those that aren't aware, we are throwing a tiny bit at Derbs because Derbs is romantically involved with Conor McHale. So just in case that didn't make sense to the audience, because not everybody knows the interpersonal workings of the ULTI.TV crew life.
Thank you for breaking down the goss. Derbs.
I can answer. I think that Dan is a flashier player, and so I can understand why he was given Player of the Year. I think he does more, and on a team like Moon has license to do more. So plays both ways, kind of if the going gets tough. Oh, kitty.
Cat.
Is on every point and is kind of utilised massively. So almost gets a bigger opportunity to show what he can do. I think Connor, Clapham are more like structurally based and won't necessarily put him out for everything, even if it's what they need, because that's not good for like the team. They're trying to like develop people and grow people, and also not make it like the Connor show. And so I think Connor has all the skills that he needs and could comfortably be the Player of the Year, but I don't think that he can necessarily do all that he can do on Clapham.
Can I ask a spicy question, Derbs?
Yes.
If you had to transfer Connor to a European Open side where you think he could best use his pizzazz, what team would you pick?
I think on Moon he'd have too many arguments. There's too many big personalities, and that would be a recipe for disaster. I think maybe Chak, because Chak played quite fast and like small bally, kind of quick, but also expansive, so kind of would sit him there. I think he'd have a great time playing on Gentle with Tobe, but I have never really thought about it, so off the top of my head, I'm going to say Chak.
Fair, quick answer. And I mean, since we did with the women's division, I mean, do we want to talk about all? Let's just talk about all and other awards.
Can I put just a complete weird sidebar that I think Simon Ruel's, of all the photographs that were selected for all of the superlative awards for Europe, it's fantastic. So good. Like, genuinely. Massive creds to, of course, Baptiste Fumaroli, who's the person who got the shot. But it's this, like, full stretch. If you've not seen it, go to the article, folks. It's a full stretch layout, like, perfect. Like
in the bronze medal game, it was a hell of a block.
Yeah. But it's the perfect kind of slight angle, but perfect of, like, you know, the thing that was on all the old 5 Ultimate stickers and is on, like, all the kind of mugs of, like, Defy Gravity's Alive, play Frisbee. It's great. It's a great photo, but also well-deserved Defensive Player of the Year. That dude is a beast.
He's a monster.
Beast. I've had the pleasure of coaching him, and he has just got better in leaps and bounds since then. Not because of the wonderful coaching he got at ISNO. His player development is sensational. He's doing it with national
teams. As we've seen, he's come on so far since he decided to leave ISNO and Steph.
I left him before he left me. I left ISNO before he left ISNO. Anyhow, I love to see him play. Like, he's just he is a great athlete to coach, and to be a teammate with. He just is everything into the game, into his game, to everything he does. A joy to coach, a joy to watch him play. He gets horizontal as good as anyone on the planet.
Am I getting it right in thinking that this past season's Superlative Awards were largely given to a crowd of what one might describe as big boys? There's a lot of tall athletes that were picked for 2024.
I mean, I think that is, especially in the Open division, that is generally the way things go. By biscuit, you can't teach tall, as they say. But yeah, I do feel that, especially because Open is often a more physical game, and you do sometimes tend to get more of the classic big, expansive style that I think often it goes to big guys.
I think, yes, but like Don and Connor aren't short, but they're not the biggest guys on either of their teams. For the two Connor's 6 foot. For players of the year, Those two are not the biggest, but yeah, there's a lot of big fellas out there. You are right.
Oh yeah, that's kind of my point though. Across the board, obviously there are players that have been picked that are not 6'7" monsters, and actually, once you get too high up the spectrum in terms of height, it then becomes almost this weird neutralizing effect as they're not as agile in smaller spaces and they get pushed downfield. Once you get to kind of like the 6'6" plus, but it's there's a lot of folks that are, especially on our offensive players of the year. Those are two chaps who are quite difficult to just kind of have that range, but they also play those flex positions, which is interesting.
Does anybody of our panel see anyone other than Connor or Dan being in the Player of the Year awards position?
So I think if you're looking maybe at an Arvid Karklinch, who potentially has, in terms of the tools and the skill set, if he takes over, then there's pretty much no one who can stop him. I think outside maybe the big two, I think Enzo Forget could, if Czech do well this year, Forget will be huge for them. And I know that we're basing it on the club stuff, not on international, but I'd be surprised if he doesn't make the French World Games roster, and I think that will alert a lot of people as to just how talented he is.
Hanny?
I mean, we didn't have any Toba Decana action, and I mean, the man stats from EUCS were absolutely bomb. And certainly someone who is the level, I mean, obviously the kind of, I think he's just set up his coaching business now, and he's, very visible with all the preparation and how seriously he's taking the sport, his preparation for it, his mindset for it, all this sort of stuff. In contrast to some of the, I mean, you've got to celebrate your wins, right? I'm not trying to besmirch anyone who was partying on the EUCF party, which was very well hosted by the Mooncatchers. But yeah, your boy was not out there. I would be surprised not to see him get something next season.
He's working very hard, and you can tell how dedicated he is.
Is this another case of Gentle having to take the next step as a team for him to get that recognition, as we discussed when we were talking in the women's division? Does his team need to medal for him to get that kind of to get Player of the Year recognition?
Well, maybe for Player of the Year. I mean, although we did get Van der Vega getting obviously the runner-up for offense. So I mean, it's I think it's that's the thing of he would have to play outside of his skin, but in the same way that actually really both Dan and Connor this season have had moments where they've just absolutely blown us away, right? Like that's why they got themselves at the tippy top of the standings. It's you have to be in the conversation, have to be being very consistent, being at a really high level, but then there have to be those moments that are just like, yeah, that's peak.
Well, based on my team pick, I could maybe see Ben Ort being a Player of the Year. If he can propel GRUT to where I've estimated they could possibly fall. A great leader. I think he's going to have that much bigger of a role for sure on GRUT than he did on Moon. Certainly stats-wise and like post-tournament visibility when you kind of do your stats rummaging. I think he's going to show up more prominently. I think the other one who I think could be the best player in Europe who has not played on the club scene, and I mentioned him earlier. He was, broke onto the scene in Huntington. He is a beach specialist, the Frenchman. Again, I talk CFC again, but like playing with Arvids and Connor and Sam Murphy and, all these wonderful women too. Like I thought Elliot Bonnet was the best player at the tournament. Maybe Sebastian Spiegel, but anyways, this is a different kettle of fish. We're talking, this is a rec tournament and this is beach. Elliot Bonnet on the beach has proven himself very soundly. He just went over and played in the US. He did a season with Truck Stop, a season with DC Breeze. He's not been back and put his show on display. It's like I am begging Mathieu Bosser of CHAC to make sure that Elliot Bonnet has a chance to play at EUCF, because I think if he's playing, that team is championship material. I think he's the straight goods. He's younger than Dan. He's younger than all these other guys, and is just he's jacked. He can throw. He can get up. He's fast. He's a
He wears cool sunglasses.
He's got cool sunglasses, and
he can dance.
And can he ever dance? A delightful young man to be around. But that's not why I rate him, because of how nice and cool he is.
No, that is why I rate him. I don't care about how good he is as Frisbee.
Well.
I just care. Is he a sound bloke?
He is.
And yeah, he is.
He is bloody good at Ultimate, and so I hope that we get to see him peddling his wares on the grass in Europe next season.
I like, yes, beach. He's undeniable. Grass, I think, he's probably not quite as good as he is on beach, but that's because he's one of the very best in the world on beach. So that's not exactly saying anything. Anyone got any shouts for? Sorry, off you go, Hannah.
What are you going to say? If we got any shouts for Breakout player?
Yeah, for any of the other awards.
So it was okay. Just while I segue, in terms of talking about speech specialists, though, someone who was on the La Fotta roster as one of their pickups is Kais Mate, who was an absolute legend in the making at EBUC a couple years ago. And it was just the really interesting thing of then he got one stat at EUCF. So I didn't get to watch that many of the La Fotta games, so I didn't really see how he was weaving into their roster. I presume, obviously, a very young athlete coming onto a very established team is one of the pickups. He'll have learned lots in terms of the preparation and training. Might not have been the most meshed in for Euros itself, but yeah, I'm curious to see where he'll land this season. Just because he was just so impressive, and then just where is he?
I rate him highly. That's a good shout.
And I think he is a great young player to keep our eyes on, who could be that breakout player. I think that's a great shout as well. Kais Mate, so that's a potential breakout from Hannah. You had your hand up again, Derbs, ever so politely.
So I don't know if they could be classed as a breakout player, because they played with Clapham last year minus Euros, and they technically played with Bropen in 2023. But I think Henry Brooking, if they stick with it, has a real good chance of being a defensive player of the year, or at least a runner-up. Brooking is 23, 24, came fresh out of Bristol University, and then kind of did Bropen for a year, and then made Clapham and GB in his first year of ever attempting to do it, and was on that U24's open side. And is just the fastest, most nimble, noodliest defender that you've ever seen, and is kind of still figuring out what to do with his body, bidding, 6 months ago. The progression is massive. Brooking is currently on an amazing travel adventure with his partner Nat, and so when they come back in April, May, might be a little bit rusty and off the track or whatever. But I think Brooking has so much raw athleticism that if they stick with it and play with Clapham this season, I think they've got a chance of being on that defensive side.
He's really switched on as well. Mentally, I think he understands the systems and the positions they try and put him in to make plays rather than just go out there and goon. I think he has the ultimate IQ, which I know that he is rated very highly within Clapham, and I think that he is, again, I think, potentially one of these new defensive kind of stars that kind of think about the game rather than just go out and play it. Not maybe unlike an Andrew Hillman was about a decade ago, in that same sort of defensive, still working out precisely how to make the most of their athleticism, but really understanding the science and psychology behind what they're doing.
Yeah.
Does Brooking come from a different field sport, perchance?
Great question. No idea. Unfortunately.
I've got a fun one for you. Do you remember who this year's European Breakout Player of the Year was?
In the Open Division?
In the Open Division.
I'm looking at it. Yes, he's
Yes.
another Czech player, but he's going to
Leo
play World
Stanguinek.
Games. Yes, Stanguinek.
Right. I think next year's Breakout Player of the Year is going to be Stanguinek.
Enzo Stanguinek.
Enzo Stanguinek. Yeah.
Good shout.
And look, am I saying this because it's funny? Yes, partly, obviously, but also, I mean, you could. There are times when you watch them play, and it's like these are the same player. Just Leo is older. Like they're still children, but like Enzo is obviously he's a bit earlier in his progression compared to Leo, who's much more polished. Certainly, Enzo's Aurora player, but like if you see like France's junior teams play, like so often at, for example, U20s, like if they got in trouble, a lot of the time they just throw some speculators into the air, and more often than not, players like Enzo Stanguinet would come down with them, even when they had absolutely zero right to. So it would not surprise me to see him make the transition into Elite Club Ultimate and make that pretty swiftly.
I like the shout. Leo Stanguinek really impressed me last year. He will make French World Games teams. And we're gonna have to have another one of these shows about World Games speculations maybe next month, because there's France and Australia have gone so far as to put their short lists out there. Now, but months ago, actually, both of them.
Team Canada put their shortlists out today as we're recording this.
Yeah, behind closed doors for USA. I mean, Deep Look did a little draft about it on some of the information they get. I've been talking with Maddie Sang a whole bunch in the off season, so a little bit, but that's going to be a heck of a tryout in the USA. Exciting things for that. And yes, I think Leo Stanguinek, one player that I think has been on a consistent incline, played for the German national team, and I've been bagging Wall City throughout the show, but I think the business has been same thing.
Mr. Harkins, yes.
Harkins, and like I said about Elliot Bonnet, dude's ripped. Dude's just an athlete. Big body, big shoulders, fast, gets up, agility. Seems like he's maturing into his game with the disc and offensively. Catching, he has matured. He's figured it, like going up and taking discs, absolute beast. Seems like
super nice guy.
Yeah, it seems
really
like he's
nice
working
guy.
out all the rest of it. I wouldn't be surprised if he broke out from very good player to breakout player of the year, kind of.
Yep.
Whoa, look out for these guys. So this guy.
Well, and certainly because I believe business was also on the German senior team for EC. Is that my ringing a bell rightly there?
Yes, that is correct.
It'd be really interesting to see how he gets on vis-a-vis Germany World Games, because that could be something that's a real platform potentially if he makes that squad.
50 people. I saw a picture, but I didn't see a list. I'm not sure if I saw him. One person I'm pretty sure I didn't see who could, maybe last year I saw, but I didn't see much of him last year. I don't know if he played at UCF, is Jonathan Maya Buntling. But the year prior, he impressed the crap out of me, but I don't think I got to see too much of him playing last year. Potentially Mook or who the Bora Bears he's played for didn't make UCF.
He's a Heidi's guy, isn't he?
Yeah, he's played all over. He's played Bora, he's played Heidi's, he's done a little bit of everything. But another player,
how did Heidi's do at EUCF?
Yeah, they fell off, but Isno beat them in by not playing summer tours. But that's another story. The semi-finalist from the year prior. So I think that wraps it up. Any last words from you wonderful panel members?
Having having started this with saying the open division's boring, I've sort of talked myself back into it.
Yeah,
just when I think I'm out, they pull me back in. And yes, at the top, we'll get some really good games, even if it's with the teams we expect. But honestly, I think that next bracket is like going into the Thunderdome. I love it. It feels a little
Two
bit to
men
me
enter,
like
one man leaves.
like women's felt this year, where you kind of had a clear idea of who the top couple were, and then anything beyond that was station to station era David Bowie, where you throw the lyrics down the stairs, and whatever order you pick them up, like that's how they go in the song. Like that's exactly how it feels to me. And in the end, women's didn't even play out that way in the end. So who the hell knows?
Who the hell knows? Benji giving us some Mad Max references, some David Bowie historical references. Finishing off strong. Thank you for being with us. Of course, we've done the women's division. Make sure you go check out that video. We will be doing, and it should be up by the time you're watching this, the mixed division. So make sure you go watch that video. Who knows? We might get together. We all love hanging out. We've had such a good time. We might try and get together more, maybe talk some world games and everything else coming up in 2025. Send some love back home, everybody. Thank you for joining us. For Derbs, for Benji, for Hannah. I've been Stefan Rapazzo. Thanks for being with us on ULTI.TV. We'll catch you next time.